This, folks, is the new GWM Cannon Ute. Now, GWM will tell you it's a facelift. Well, let me tell you, as facelifts go, it's a pretty major one. It's got a new look front and rear. It's got new wheels. It's got a better interior, much better safety tech. It's got a lot more engine, and it's even got an extra gear in the transmission. And all that for about the same price as the old one was. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Well, let's see how good. Value for money is really where it's at with the Cannon. The new 2.4 litre range kicks off with the Lux at 40,490 and then moves to the car we've driven here, the Ultra, at 43,490. From there, the next step is the Vanta, which is basically an Ultra with more black bits, at 45,490, and then there's the off-road focused XSR at 49,990. You can check out the full specifications and the price ladder in the written review of this vehicle at carsguide.com.au. But even the base model Cannon is well equipped with 18-inch alloy wheels, wireless charging, big touchscreen, digital radio, voice command, plenty of connectivity, LED lighting, auto headlights, keyless entry, and of course the dual cab all-wheel drive layout. Move up to our Ultra test car here and you add leather accents to the seats, heated and ventilated front chairs, ambient lighting and tinted windows. The only thing missing is the dual zone climate control, and it's a single zone setup even on the flagship model, although you do get vents in the rear seat. This is technically a facelifted vehicle, so it's not an all new model. Most of the structure is carried over, which means it's still a separate body on a lattice chassis. But the structure has been tweaked a little to enable GWM to up the towing limit to the full 3,500 kilograms that its competitors boast. If there is a new design direction here, it's in the way the manufacturer is setting about making the Ute identifiable as a GWM rather than just another dual cab. That can be seen in the embossed tailgate and even the boss of the steering wheel, which reflects the brand's corporate logo. Inside the cabin there's plenty of room, although I reckon the rear door openings feel a bit small. Nothing new there in this type of vehicle. There are plenty of USB charge points and 12-volt sockets in the front, and the dual screens give it a techie look and feel. But I reckon you can tell that this was originally a left-hand drive design by the way the menus on the touchscreen are all laid out on the wrong side, and they're a big stretch away as a result. I'm not a fan of the T-bar shifter either, which enables you to select manual mode but not actually shift the gears. To do that, you have to use the paddle shifters on the steering wheel. The rear seat is better than some, with a reasonable backrest angle, plenty of footroom, and you also get rear air vents, charge points, and a fold-down centre armrest when there's no fifth passenger. Now, of course, any Ute lives or dies on its practicality, and this one is no different. Inside, you get a spray-on bed liner, but to me, the edges of the liner look a little bit unfinished. Now, I know it's a Ute, it's going to get knocked around, but wouldn't it be nice if it looked nice and crisp and clean, at least for the first week? Anyway, it's also got 4 tie-down points. It should have more. There's 2 at the front, but they're up high, so they're not much use. The 2 at the back that are down low are also in the wrong place, because if you've got something really heavy, you don't want it right at the back of the tray. You want it between the axles so it's well forward, and that's where you need the low tie-down points. However, you do get a damp tailgate, which is really nice because it's actually quite a heavy tailgate to use. And I love this. Look at that, a step. Because this is a very high vehicle. Now, if you're clumsy like me, this thing's probably got scun sheen all over it, but it's still going to be better than the detached retinas you're going to get base jumping out of the back otherwise. One of the criticisms of this car in its previous form was that it didn't really have enough trousers. This time around, GWM has switched out the old 2-litre engine for a 2.4 litre. So now it's got 135 kilowatts of power and 480 newton meters of torque, which is 80 newton meters more than the old version. It's also got a 9th gear in the transmission, and it's also got a high and low transfer case. So you've got high ratio gears for the highway and low ratio gears for pulling out of rivers and jumping over rocks or whatever it is you want to do in the great outdoors. Here's where new technology is worth the price of admission. Despite being 400cc's larger than the old engine, more powerful and offering more torque, the new engine in the Cannon actually uses a full litre per 100 kilometres less than the old car, according to the official combined test cycle. With a 78 litre tank, that gives a theoretical range of more than 900 kilometres, but 750 or so is a more realistic real-world number before you start looking for a service station. So, having established the fact that this car's got the equipment and the appearance of a lot of rather more expensive Utes, what's it like to drive? Does it still make the grade? Does it still punch above its weight? Well, it's interesting because the gearbox in this car is not a proprietary one that GWM's just bought in. It's their own design. And I think it's a little bit slow in launching the car. It waits till it's got a bit of boost on board before it really lets fly with the Newton meters. And the other thing that I noticed it doing on the road, on the highway, was that when you came out of a slip lane and you were accelerating, say, onto a freeway, it was tending to hold the higher gears a little bit too long before it shifted up relative to where my foot was on the accelerator. Now, that's just a calibration thing. It's electronics, and it's the way they've set it up, and they've done it deliberately. It's not my personal preference, but it's certainly not a major criticism. The engine itself is quite smooth and well isolated, but you do get a little bit of that diesel clatter at idle and at low revs, and when you're first getting off the mark. But it does build boost very quickly, and that's actually at the expense of top end rush, because it does run out of puff, not in a hurry, but it doesn't sustain that level of boost all the way through to red line. Again, it's not this car's brief to be like that. It's not a sports car, and in terms of what it is designed to do, that won't be a problem. The steering, well, I'm going to have an argument with them here, because the active lane assistance, or the lane keeping program, I find oversensitive, over aggressive, and it's just too much of the time. They can afford to back it off and just remind me that I'm drifting towards the white line, rather than shouting at me and sending me back to the center of the road, because sometimes I don't want to be in the center of the lane, like when you're overtaking a B double, for instance. So there's that. Beyond that, the steering is a little bit dead at the straight ahead. Again, that's an off-roader thing, because they do that deliberately so that you don't get shocks through the wheel on little rocky river pebbles and things like that. Not like the road we're on now. And here's something else I like about this vehicle that you don't get on a lot of vehicles that cost twice as much, and that's paddle shifts on the steering wheel. Now, you might think, oh, that's a Ferrari thing, that's for sports cars. Let me tell you, when you're in low range, off-road, being able to tell the gearbox exactly what to do without taking your hands off the wheel is a huge bonus. Don't knock it till you've tried it. It is a really good feature, and as I say, a lot of cars double the price don't have it, so full marks for that. The safety story the Canon tells is a pretty convincing one. There are 7 airbags, including a centre bag to prevent head clashes in side impacts, and all outboard passengers have curtain bags. The latest driver aids are present too, including autonomous emergency braking that can detect pedestrians and cyclists and works at all speeds. There's also rear cross traffic alert and braking, and of course, that lane keeping program that we're not such a fan of. Again, the written review at carsguide.com.au has the full story on what safety gear is fitted and what's missing. GWM calls its ownership experience the 755 deal. That's 7 years of unlimited kilometre warranty, 5 years of roadside assistance, and 5 years of cap price servicing. The final price of each service hasn't yet been decided, but figure on a similar amount to the old Canon's $360 service costs. Service intervals are every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres, which isn't quite as long as some of the competition. I keep coming back to this expression, it does the job, and really I think that's kind of, it's not the point of the car, but it's one of the underlying factors of why you perhaps should consider it. There are a lot of cars out there for a lot more money that don't have some of the features that this car's got. It is missing a couple. It doesn't have dual zone climate control, for instance, and there's no head-up display, but we'll let it off for that. So there's a lot of cars out there that cost a lot more that don't do any more than this, or don't do it any better, and that's what you've got to consider. Yes, you can spend stacks more money and get a superior product, but do you need it? And is the warranty of this vehicle enough at 7 years? It's probably enough for a lot of people. I mean, when you look at the value proposition, you absolutely have to have this on your shortlist, and that's what GWM's finding. Fleet buyers are looking at this car, but private buyers, the people who really understand the value of a buck, they are loving it. And I think that says it all. And this car, with its improvements, is only going to make that more so.